What is good, guys? It's Rey-Jay back with another video, and in this one I want to break down what's going on with the overall market and talk about how SPY and Aapl are looking. I'm going to make this a two-part video series where I talk about SPY and Aapl for today and then talk about other tickers for tomorrow. I want to just make this very, very interesting and very simple for almost anyone to understand how the technicals are looking for the market right now. But before I do anything like this, before I get into any more details, let me just mention a couple of things. I am firstly not a financial planner, so take none of this as financial advice. And also, if you guys can, please check out the Webull link, which is down below and in the description. If you sign up for Webull, the link down below, and deposit any amount of money into the account, you are guaranteed up to 12 free stocks. The offer ends in just about 6 days from now, so check it out before they run out. Anyways, let's break down what the charts are doing and some very interesting things. So on SPY, right now, things are looking a little bit better, especially because Aapl finally got the bounce we were talking about. And if you look at the how SPY moved, it was very similar to what I was predicting. We basically got this nice pump in the morning. We were calling this really, really nice pump. Then I told you the market may slow down as time goes on, but we should get a green close and close above max pain at 445. Max pain is what the market makers were triggering based off the options chain. I also broke down the options chain for you guys, looking at the open interest and things like that, and told you guys that the market makers were looking at 445. And that is what ended up happening. That is where we closed, just above that. Now, with that happening, right, with us getting this last minute push for 445, the question is, how will the market move from here? And this will depend on news and other factors, but from this standpoint, it looks like there is potential for the market to push a little bit higher. And part of this is because of Aapl. If Aapl truly does come and get the push we're looking for, I think there's a chance there might be some hype going into early next week. And I don't know what's going to happen after Aapl's big event, but I will break down a couple of things about it. So for the entire week, just as a big reminder, we don't have really anything too big coming out for, like Monday. We have consumer inflationary expectations. For Tuesday, there's not much going on either, but Wednesday is going to be a very big day for data as we have CPI coming out, and it is indeed going to be very telling for the month of August. There are some fears of CPI going up. There's a big projected increase in core CPI that's being projected, so we'll have to wait and see on that. We'll see how energy prices impact us, but what's going to be big for Tuesday on the 12th of September at 10 o'clock a.m. Pacific time, which is going to be a lot earlier for people on the, a little bit later for people on the East Coast, but this is going to be a very, very important event. Aapl has this event going on Tuesday, and approaching this big event, there's some talks about some new products coming out. So why is this so important? Aapl could be unveiling the next iPhone. Aapl could be announcing some very big things. They could be giving us new updates on the smartwatches, the Apple Watch. I mean, that's going to be pretty awesome for them. But the thing to remember is that during events like this, when Aapl has big events, what typically happens is it pumps right before the events. Then after the events are out, it typically dumps. Not a guarantee. That, history does not have to guarantee what's going to happen in the future, but that is what tends to happen. So we have to be open-minded and be prepared just in case. So how do I think this is going to end up affecting the markets? Well, we have to first look at Aapl's charts. I want to do some good technical analysis on Aapl. I'm going to talk about SPY and a couple of others later on. But let's actually switch over to Aapl before I talk about SPY. So on Aapl, it's looking pretty decent so far. We have a very interesting looking setup so far. We also had this pivotal zone that was acting as this resistance for today, this 180 area. I forgot to mark this down. I wanted to really clean up this chart to make it very simple and easy to understand for almost anyone. But we are on the verge of developing a potential bullish wedge. So right off the bat. And if you look at Aapl, okay, when the news came out about the big event, Aapl was exploding, right? This is why the market was pumping last week. I'm sure you guys remember SPY was pumping. And when this happened, I told you all we had this triple bearish divergence. It didn't really look good to me. I warned everyone that some kind of dump is coming for Aapl. And what happened was Aapl dumped, many days in a row. And it dumped really hard. It went from almost 190 all the way down to about 173 in just a matter of 2 days. Pretty crazy stuff. Now, with Aapl dumping like this, okay, we also had some bad news involving China. The Chinese governmental regulations that came out, the fact that they're stopping their governmental employees from using iPhones was some pretty bad news, and Aapl sold off very hard. But when this was selling off, I told you all we had a bullish divergence and we should get a bounce for Friday. If you look at Aapl, it did close green today, so we got the bounce. So now with that in mind, looking at this chart, we have this big change in market structure. All right, so Aapl had this, trend where it would make these lows. So we made this low here, lower high, lower low, lower low here, lower high, and it just kept tanking, right? Well, we have this change in market structure as we're respecting this uptrend. We have a nice trend line right over here, and we have this resistance zone at this 180 area. If we maintain this zone, we're going to get a breakout, and Aapl is going to most likely fill its gap at the very least to like the 180, almost 182. So there's a very good chance it's going to do that. Now, can I promise it? Obviously, it depends on news and other factors, but there's a good chance it's going to attempt to do so. We have a potential inverse head and shoulders structure, and it held up through today. Today was just like the pivot day where it started to like really change directions and give us that confirmation. So this gap up here getting filled is going to lead to some good price action. Now, I could predict what's going to happen likely approaching the big event, right? Approaching Tuesday. But unfortunately, I don't know what's going to happen after the event. These are hard to predict. Typically, we sell off after these big events, but it's not always a guarantee. So I'm just going to be open-minded. I'm not going to hold way too many like positions through the event. I'm just going to wait and see how it goes. And part of trading involves just waiting. Do not fall for like euphoria. Do not fall for FOMO. If you miss an entry, you miss an entry, right? There are always going to be new ones coming, new opportunities coming. But in this case, I'm just going to be very careful. So with Aapl potentially pushing up to fill this gap, you can also look at our other indicators that we have on. I'm going to use Webull for this part. We had the bullish divergence play out. We're forming a very, very nice accumulation structure. And it is showing some signs of life. One thing that's a little concerning, I guess, I don't want to use the word concerning, but one thing that's a little bit not as good for Aapl would be the fact that despite the gap forming, our daily candle looks a little bit weak, and we're getting very close to a daily cross on the PPO. So is this thing about to get some kind of like rug pulled down because of some bad piece of news? It's a possibility, but I'm not leaning that much in that direction. Seems to me like Aapl has been holding support. So if this support breaks, then that's going to change my mind. But for now, it's holding support. And as long as this holds, there's a good chance there's going to be a breakout, and I'm still leaning in that direction. So I'm thinking we're going to pump approaching the event, okay? We're going to pump approaching this event, start pushing up. Then after the event, who knows what's going to happen? I'm leaning more in that direction. There might be some excitement, some hype approaching it, and we'll have to wait and see. Now, if this is the case, if Aapl really is going to pump like this, if it doesn't break below its trend line, this is also going to help the whole market, including SPY, make an attempt to pump. If you look at SPY, we have this inverse head and shoulders that is developed on it. And as of right now, it's holding up. We also have this nice change in market structure and uptrend being respected. And if you look at where it bounced, it was actually a very clean bounce because we could take our handy dandy Fibonacci retracement tool and just like measure this move. So like from right here, we could see where it retraced to today was almost exactly where the 0.786 retracement happened to be. This was this retracement from the pre-market, and then earlier today was the 0.618 or 444.7. So almost perfect retracement for the bounce. So it's very perfect. And with that set in mind, the question is, how high is it going to go? We're going to be watching 447. If it manages to break this with Aapl pushing, we need Aapl to push up, by the way. Aapl is going to be very important for next week. We could see SPY try to fill this gap and go up to 449. I'm leaning more in that direction, but I want to see it hold 447 first. And I think Aapl could help save the market to some extent. But then after Aapl's really big event, who knows what's going to happen? I don't know how that's going to affect SPY either. So I'm just going to be patient. We're just going to be watching. Going to be looking for a bounce. As of right now, we're starting to make higher highs and higher lows. So it makes no sense to turn into a mega bear just yet. Now on SPY, there is one thing that's a little weaker on it. That's going to be the daily MACD. Now it's getting very close to a bearish cross, but there were, instances where it happened, and yet this thing continued to go higher, where we got like a bearish cross, but it still tried to hold up anyways. So we haven't actually gotten the cross yet, so I can't turn too bearish just yet. Could this be a head and shoulders forming? And people are talking about that. I mean, it's a possibility, but as of right now, we haven't really gotten a big rejection. We actually closed green on SPY at 445. So with Aapl's event, there's a good chance it's going to make an attempt to try to push up. If Aapl truly does do that, which I think the odds favor, then there's a good chance of something exciting happening. So Aapl's approaching this big event. I don't I wouldn't expect it to like crash right before unless there's like a bad external piece of news. As of right now, I'm not seeing it, so there is a good chance it's going to help the market up. So I'm going to just kind of keep this video short because the weekend is coming up. I'm going to make another video tomorrow trying to keep it short as well. That's what I have for this one. I will talk more about like NVIDIA, the QQQ, the NASDAQ, and Tesla for tomorrow alongside Apple, and talk about their relationship and talk about how they're looking for tomorrow's video. But until then, I thank you all so much for listening. Have a great day. Remain calm, cool, and collected. And I'll see you guys in the next one. Thank you and peace out.